Friend, I am Dr. Yusuf Hanif Sheikh, Department of Physics, Shivaji College, Kannad. The topic of my talk is biometrics for recognition. Biometric identifications methods. I am talking on traditional methods of security, need for biometrics, recognition techniques, how biometrics works, and its applications. This slide shows different biometric recognitions such as facial recognition, iris recognition, fingerprint recognition, and so on. Why establish identity? Because authentication of a person is basic component to establish identity. You are familiar with ATMs, cellular phones, smart cards, desktop PCs, workstations and computers. At such places we use PIN and password that may be forgotten. At some places we use token based identity that may be forged, stolen or lost. Why biometrics? Biometric identification is a foolproof way of proving one's identity because many physical markers that are unique and specific to an individual remains constant throughout life. A biometric parameter is the inborn and intrinsic property of an individual. It cannot be duplicated, stolen, copied or forged. It cannot be forgotten or misplaced. What is biometric? The word biometric is a combination of two words, bio and matrix. Bio means physical or behavioral matrix. To measure characteristics, biometrics is actually an automatic identification of a person based on his or her physiological or behavioral characteristics. Physical biometrics. There are few examples of physical biometrics that are fingerprints recognition, facial recognition, hand geometry recognition, iris recognition, and retinal scan recognition. Behavioral biometrics. Behavioral biometrics covers speaker voice recognition in which analysis of vocal behavior is done. Signature or handwriting recognition in which analysis of signature dynamics is done. Keystroke patterning in which the measurement of time, spacing or typed word is completed. Fingerprint recognition. The patterns on the ridges of the fleshy part of our fingers are unique. No two individuals, even identical twins, have fingerprints that are exactly alike. Fingerprint ridges are formed during the third to fourth month of fetal development and persist lifelong. These patterns of ridges and valleys leave impressions on whatever they touch. Injuries such as minor burns or cuts do not wipe out or change the pattern. The skin grows displaying the same pattern. That is what makes the fingerprint so useful in establishing identity. This is the block diagram of how fingerprint recognition takes place. Hand geometry involves the measurement and the comparison of the different physical characteristics of the hand. However, hand geometry devices have been in use since the early 1980s. Iris recognition. The iris is the pigmented connective tissues that controls the pupil. It is formed in early life, and once fully formed, it remains stable throughout life. The iris of the eye has pattern that is unique to an individual. Glasses, contact lenses, and even eyes surgeries does not change the iris pattern. The iris scanner cannot be deceived by using a photo or even an iris taken from a dead person. Because iris scanning systems vary the light and check if the pupil is dilating or contracting as it should in response to the light. Template glasses, contact lenses, and even eye surgery does not change the iris of the pattern. Retinal scan. A retina scan involves the use of low intensity light to study the pattern formed by the capillary blood vessel located in the back of the eye. The best part of this is that the pattern remains unchanged throughout the life. A retina scan cannot be faked as it is not possible to forge a human retina. Also, the retina taken from a dead person decays too rapidly and cannot be used to track a retinal scan machine. Facial recognition. Biometric facial recognition system usually analyze the overall structure, shape, and proportions of the face, taking into account the distance between the eyes, nose, mouth, and jaws edges, upper outlines of the eye sockets, the sides of the mouth, and the area surrounding the cheekbones. Signature verification. A signature verification is a method, an automated method of measuring an individual's signature or handwriting recognition, in which analysis of the signature dynamics is done. In this method, the speed, direction, and pressure of writing, the time that the stylus is in hand and out of contact with the paper. Voice recognition. The analysis of tone and frequency of a person's voice can be used to identify a person. It is used as a password where the lock will open when the authorized person gives a voice command. It is also used to identify bank customers phoning in as an individual or alternative to conventional password. Keystroke Dynamics. To study the keystroke dynamics is an automated method of examining an individual's keystrokes on a keyboard. In these dynamics, the parameters like speed, pressure, and the time taken to type particular words and the time gap between hitting certain keys is measured and examined. Prevent unauthorized access. to ATMs, cellular phones, smart cards, desktop PCs, workstations, computer network, criminal identification, prison security, or electronic commerce and electronic banking. In automobiles, biometrics, one can replace keystrokes with keyless entry devices. Airport security, voter cards, and civilian applications. These are the few applications despite lots of advances in the realm of biometrics identification. It is clear that there is still plenty of room for improvement. The shape of your ear is just as distinguishing as your fingerprints. No two ears, even on the same person, are alike. Startup Discretes Biometrics has come up with an app that can identify smartphones users by the way they press their phone to their ear and cheek. Though its less than consistent recognition means that perhaps this particular app is not yet ready for prime time. Your heart. They say that the heart always knows the truth, so it should not be surprising that someone's come up with a way to prove your identity based on it. The NIME is in development with wristband that takes an electrocardiogram measuring the electrical signals generated by your heart's activity and uses it to authenticate your identity. You can then use the NIME as a secure token for unlocking access to other devices such as smartphones and computers. To date, identifying people by ECG is less prone than fingerprints or iris or retina recognition. The eye movements authentication via parts of the eye like the retina or iris has been around for a while, but an Israeli company wants to use the unique movements of our eye to identify you. It seems that we move our eyes in a particular pattern when doing certain tasks, such as following an icon across a screen. The advantages of the system are that it's tough to fool since it requires a real-time response to a stimulus rather than a static factor like a fingerprint, and it's fairly easy to implement. The downside, I imagine, is that it requires eye contact and is probably a little slower than using something like fingerprint. Nose. Not only is your olfactory organ good for smelling, but British researchers have established that it's also a handy way to tell you apart from your neighbor, like your ears, your nose is distinct, probably belonging to one of 6 common nose types, and is unlikely to be mistaken for anybody else. It's also easy to recognize, though changing your nose is hardly as tough as changing, say, your eyes. Hollywood can vouch for that. You are so vain. While your fingerprints may be the biometric standby these days, there are some issues with relying on them too heavily. For one, they are fairly easy to copy, Second, if someone is truly invested in breaking into your accounts, that may provide enticement to remove a finger. When matching, on the other hand, can also use a finger or a palm but provides a few additional benefits, most notably that the veins must be from living persons in order to work, and that's they are very hard to fake. Sniff test. When the grade school bully taunted small year later, he probably didn't realize that he was predicting another potential biometric methods. That's right, your distinct body odor. We are making no judgments here can be used to identify you. Researchers at Polytechnical University of Madurai have studied how to scents differ among people and built an artificial nose which they can differentiate between two people by smelling, like a bloodhound. Conclusion: Biometric is an emerging area with many opportunities for growth. Possibly in the near future, you will not have to remember pins and passwords and keys in your bags. Pocket or pockets will be the things of past. I acknowledge Dr. Sukanya Datta and science reporter because I used some text matters and figure from her article in Science Reporter Journal. I also acknowledge popular science because I used some figures from I used some text matter and figure from article biometric identification method, and these are the references which I used in this presentation, and this is end. I thank all of you for patience listening. Thank you.